when the weather clears up. For now, you're welcome. You have us, SportsCenter with Matt Barry and Sage Steele.
Speaking of weather, I just looked at my Doppler radar. The storm
Doppler radar?
The storm clouds have moved in. You know what we're doing?
Tell me.
College football arguments everywhere. Why? Because the AP poll was just announced. This just in. Nick Saban and Alabama, number one. The 9th time Alabama has been number one in the preseason AP poll since preseason rankings began in 1950. The only school that has more, Oklahoma, 10 times. The Ohio State Buckeyes, number two. Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud had the highest chance of any team, even Alabama, to make the CFP at 83% per the All-State playoff predictor. The defending national champion, Georgia, they are third in this year's AP poll. This is the 5th straight year the Bulldogs are in the preseason AP top 5, their longest streak in program history. In the 4th spot, Clemson, back in the AP top 5 for the 7th straight year. The only school with an active longer streak is Alabama at 14, including 22, which is the longest streak since 1915. Rounding out the top 5, this perhaps a little bit of a surprise. Notre Dame at 5, who make it for the first time since 2006. Notre Dame's showdown against Ohio State in Columbus will be the 11th season opening matchup ever between top 5 opponents. Perhaps that answers one of the questions of Notre Dame being in the top 5. Texas A&M, you see them getting it there at 6. Baylor, how about the Baylor Bears, defending Big 12 champions? They cracked the top 10 at 10. And then you've got a Pac-12 representative in Oregon at 11, Oklahoma State, and then Michigan State coming off an 11-2 season, round out the top 15 at 11-2. Paul Finebaum joins us now. And Paul, I just rattled off the top 4, same as it ever was: Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson. So when you look at this, why should college football fans look at that and be excited about the top 4?
Well, because it's going to change very quickly, Matt, as you mentioned. You have in the very first weekend of the season, Ohio State and Notre Dame, so somebody is going to be taking a pretty good fall. Other than that, this is as predictable as it gets, and it's now to the point, Matt, it doesn't really matter what you did the previous year. You're still, if you're Clemson or you have a big name like Southern Cal, you're going to be ranked high. Clemson had a bad year by their standards. They went 10-3 and didn't make the playoffs, but they're right back in contention this year. And I think all the arguments about there's not enough teams in contention are being proven true by this poll.
Yeah, look, Clemson's going to have one of, if not the best defense in all of college football. If DJ Uiagalelei can come up and live up to his hype, perhaps Clemson will be right back where they are, which is ACC champion and in the college football playoff. Let's touch on Georgia defending national championship for a minute. They had 7 of the 11 starters from their defense drafted in the NFL. Kirby Smart, you got to wonder, is this going to be an LSU in 2019, or has he, in fact, reloaded this program to, in fact, be in the top 3 in the discussion every year? What do you make of Georgia's ranking?
He has reloaded, Matt. I mean, I want to say they're ranked too high, but when you look and say, where would you put them, there really aren't a lot of spots. I mean, they have a completely different look defensively, although the guys behind all those number 1 draft choices are going to be number 1 draft choices. And we barely knew who the number 1 pick was when the season began last year. That's how good Kirby Smart has recruited. But yeah, they have a tricky game in the opener against Oregon. Dan Lanning, the Oregon head coach, he was in charge of the defense last year, and it was arguably as good a defense as we've ever seen. But I think the school that we're probably not paying enough attention to, even though they're number 2, is Ohio State. Yep. I mean, they are legitimate, Matt. You know that. Everybody watching should know that. And while we all fall in love with Nick Saban's teams on a yearly basis, this could be the year for Ohio State.
You just have to watch out with the Buckeyes because they come in with a lot of preseason hype every single year, and it seemed as if sometimes in the early part of the season they stub their toe, and then they've got to battle back the entire rest of the year, Paul, to get back into the good graces of all the voters that say that they belong in the college football playoff discussion.
I think they've cleaned that up a little bit. They made some pretty serious changes, as everyone in Buckeye land knows, at the defensive coordinator position. They're better suited this year. They had a miserable start last year. Remember that Oregon game where they got just run off the field at their own stadium? I know the score didn't indicate that. But there is so much energy and strength and talent on that team. Of course, Alabama, you can't ignore them, even though they're number 1. They have the best 2 players in the country at the quarterback position in Bryce Young and Will Anderson Jr., who is an all-world player on the defensive side.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.